Hi everyone, Donna DiMaggio Berger, and where we speak content.
On today's episode, marijuana, weed or pot, refer to the dried flower seeds of the cannabis plant. It contains more than 100 THC, which is what causes the user to feel ED, which is not impaired. Marijuana was temporarily categorized as a narcotic under the Act of 1970. Pennsylvania Governor Raymond decriminalizing the possession of marijuana for persons 72 and chose to ignore that. Marijuana remains illegal today. However, states have legalized marijuana. Many states are on for recreational use. Marijuana is not without a negative interaction with problems surrounding marijuana, increasingly become a problem for family communities. Nesta Burnett is back on to discuss marijuana and education. Now, many of her episodes last season and service animals. One of our most listened to, and you are our first to take it to the board. So
thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm sure you're going to have a lot to do. So the first is the U.S. Department of Housing, HUD. What does HUD have marijuana in multifamily?
You just said it is still considered a drug and it is a crime to, any kind of form of marijuana. So HUD has advised to accept a HUD complaint for marijuana. So that they needed to use medical marijuana and an associate, they tried to file a HUD complaint that HUD would dismiss.
That's huge. That if somebody for smoking is a nuisance. So the neighbors are complaining about, the ring of smoke, user of the marijuana file a complaint. You're saying right now will not enter.
HUD will not investigate it because they do
that. Well, I think we all right, but we will on the podcast. We talk to evaluate a request for PAT restrictions for individual service or some of the things I was going to ask you before was evidence with somebody that needs to smoke medical marijuana. Is this now that HUD has said they're not these complaints?
I've seen them, and the reason is HUD may not do anything. All a federal I have seen brought where defense counsel and the claims and these claims based on the federal end up settling. So line of case law. We have Florida, as well as the medical marijuana, which I believe is found at 3986. If denies someone the right to, or any other, there's a potential FHA violation.
JoAnn, to prove that they have marijuana they're smoking isn't.
Usually they're given on a card, and based on need anything further. They have a prescription for the marijuana.
Is there any ability off the internet to print out the written service animals? Is that card, but is there without actually having to read for it?
I can't other states. I can tell you a card without having evaluated and then.
Would you want to see is a copy okay? Are there any guardrails, how you present that evidence?
It'd be great to be able to get your card, but in theory, probably going to get a copy.
No need for a medical physician, just the
card itself should be. So that means a doctor has determined that you have a disability with diagnosis that medical marijuana relieve your symptoms. We would be able to request, and HUD's not involved from a HUD perspective. The Fair Housing Act, okay with just the card.
So the card is saying, is entitled to use the card. Actually, or just says this person marijuana.
Just so
okay. And I would assume the advice is don't ask that you're using this medically.
Never ask for a diet. You have a physical, mental.
So the next question that I get, okay, so we have a need for medical smoke it because when they smoke can smell and sometimes actually remember I said in the intro THC and CBD, THC, which is component, is there an ability you need medical marijuana? Can you use it other than actually impact your neighbors?
A fair question to ask that I've done. Edibles, or instead of use marijuana. From the research that I've done, people will claim that the edible not as strong as marijuana. So people suffering pain or something like that, unable to use, it just doesn't give them this amelioration of their. So we can always ask what we can do there. And some people, but it's going to depend that there's something in the statute. There's some people that can get marijuana to be smoked that's normally prescribed, you think, and things like that. But it depends on the person, disability might be.
Bedridden. And so they have from the bed or the couch. Let's assume we have one question is, well, why can't they just marijuana off premise, smoking it in the unit or affecting other people? Because I don't know that you could just, drop by. The other issue is they do have locations in the community about marijuana. It is still a parents who don't want marijuana and they don't want their designated smoking spot to be, getting high. Those issues?
I have it for this. A lot of proponents of marijuana is going to be smoked. So what we need to find outdoors and social use that maybe are, the let's not go smoke, have this, the busier areas.
Off from view for.
Try and set something up that is do this. And then perhaps we'd have much who are fighting it, less problems.
Depends designated spot. It could wind up in there.
That's absolutely true.
Some signage. I mean, listen, for sure. Even though there's that are, recreational use of marijuana, medical usage, but at the a cause of action calls and says, look, obviously this person coming through is smelling up the complaints. So we decided most governing documents clause, which prohibits engaging in activities that, as we said at the outset, is that a clause that when you're asked to go after somebody who's smoking?
Yeah, it's probably not.
Okay.
And the reason being, if it's medical permitted, so they're technically, under Florida law, crime under federal law. So it's in the documents.
Well, unlike, yes, smoke has and cigar smoke, all, but marijuana has a very disable like it. A lot of people nuisance clause.
I would first claim. Yeah, I had a call yesterday who condominium and asthma, severe asthma, has whenever he smells it for him and smokes marijuana, and it seeps right into them for both of those individuals. Association to make an accommodation, unit owner at least signs are within the boundaries of the association's taking the position. So if we were association, we would probably try and unit owners and see what we could. In this case, we're likely going to end.
Perhaps the trespass is seeping into his.
In fact, there's really not all, but I did find a court case where unit owner for nuisance owner prevailed. It's not a case it's not going to set precedent, but it is.
Association who didn't want to get it. I was association counsel to the directors is their duty to enforce the governing. Never seen a set of governing the nuisance clause. Unlawful use clauses is certain things take a hands-off approach. Be one of them. Like a lot of our communities, they have abundance of recreation. They have these theaters and it's open to the public. Come now, you've got as well. So what if some type of communities claim they need to smoke their marijuana
type area is going to be a problem? Like designated area, then in my opinion, unit owners should be units to smoke marijuana.
Employees. So a lot of employees, whether they're in companies, employees of the association, he says, I have to the smoking.
Right. So I did discover from our firm who is, and she told me speaking, if drug-free work is no need to, just like under the ADA, there would be no need to allow them to smoking. Now they might be able to off time, but they shouldn't be smoking in those or drug-free workplaces.
We're talking about marijuana, the drug-free workplace, and it's not going to be impacted. Smoking marijuana.
Right. Not smoking cigarettes.
We have a lot of associates, our direct employers who have not taken the steps to create a drug-free working that some of our listeners, after listening to this episode.
And Jamie explained to me that benefits and things like that too. So, oftentimes of that.
So a lot of, as you well know, they have stout, and a lot of them are rails around the leasing to protect the associates who are leasing out their units. They're really about the amount of rent. One of the things, a uniform lease rider, certain protections for the associates. Certainly some clients have added language into that would allow them to be using marijuana, medical or otherwise. If that language were added to fair housing issues.
It could create a Fair Housing Act. Good news about that is HUD would not be a person who the tenant marijuana or they would actually, there's nothing short of administrative this at this level, court action.
And there are for most people that's a perfect segue, because if it were regular smoke from a cigar, or would that be subject to our under 718.1?
Would. Yes, it would.
What about if it's marijuana smoking?
Now, the division jurisdiction over your fair housing, don't believe they would accept jurisdiction complaint.
Is the excessive complaint related to nuisance? They would accept you.
Would. So if clients were to file a petition with the division to prevent marijuana, what I do is strike the defense, file a HUD complaint, within typically do. But this is no HUD complaint to be, I'm guessing, and I've come across it yet, the arbitrator would then strike the seed.
Interesting. The outset, your episode, support animals, and most listened to Edward. I remember you mixed with me that I still sheep and 4 goats. Do you have any of these kinds of cases?
And the goats are gone. And we prevailed there. Then for accommodations for chickens, I know where people want in association. So you heard, and there's a owner with a chicken. Literally, I mean, you can hear and smell the it's absolutely terrible.
As to why this is, and we both have, it's being driven by liberty craze for chickens. That's what it is, because all have their, homes and lot their chickens, and they put it on dairy.
Well, this is, owners association, your neighbors, and your neighbors are on either side. These celebrities who have all this doesn't really work well in associations.
Did I tell you?
No.
I did not last Mother's Day, but my son, Ryan, and it was with a book, and an Italian bees are going to. The box was the beekeeper's smoker. And I said, Ryan, this is what you send me. He said, be a beekeeper. I said, Ryan wanted to be a beekeeper. I said, and we should protect them. Sure, bees are livestock, HOA. And I could see the whole beekeeper kit. Golfers are going to look over bees. I called the company. I said 10,000 bees. And, no attorney violates that. And that was that he was really irritated that I have all these bees.
I have for bees and certain zoning district that, and that was all.
Well, we have Mavi Kier is the Broward County property of that, for agriculture. Bees would, but the tax offset risk 1,000 bees.
I don't think
so. You say to people who just say, "You're JoAnn, you're just a party killer."
I mean, to that other, yes, but I am.
Well, anyone listening and who are dealing with who that their regular marijuana use impacting their neighbors, and
I definitely that we can help you with. Waiting HUD, is huge. It would give an association of getting rid of and refuse to do what, and like I said, to set up these where people can go with everyone else and happily and
put some strobe lights in a little space. Folks, JoAnn was kind enough to come up, but she is not giving to your community. So for community associate, you have this issue. JoAnn, you want to give in case anybody wants to reach out?
Email is jburnetti@Becker, and my phone number is 8541.
Let us know if your phone starts ringing.
I will.
Much. As I said, you're our first. Tells me you're going to make it a third.
Thank you. I would be happy.
Thanks, JoAnn.
Thank you for joining us today. Follow and rate us on your favorite. Visit Take It to the Boards to connect.